Hi Year 8s. Let's look at Chapter 3b using lowest common multiples to add and subtract fractions. Our key vocabulary today include the word fraction, proper fractions, improper fractions, mixed fractions, and lowest common multiples. All right, let's start. Now, as we know, a fraction is an equal part of a whole number. Okay, so for an example here, let's look at the fraction 3 over 4. We know that when we have a whole, the denominator is the lower number of the two. This is our divisor. Okay, the denominator is the lower number down the bottom, and the top number is our numerator. Okay. When we have this example 3 over 4, what does that mean? Well, if we have a whole number, let's pretend that this is our whole, we're going to divide our whole, hopefully equally, as equally as possible, into 4 segments. So our denominator tells us how many segments or equal parts we need to divide our whole into. Our numerator, on the other hand, tells us how many of those segments we are actually physically working with. So in this case, that would be 1, 2, 3 parts. Okay. Remember that each of these 4 segments or 4 equal parts is equal to 1/4. So that'd be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. 4 over 4, also meaning 1 whole. Okay, let's look at what a proper fraction is. So a proper fraction, we know, is any fraction where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So in this case, the numerator must be smaller than the denominator. An improper fraction, on the other hand, is the opposite. An improper fraction would be any fraction where the numerator is larger than the denominator. Let's look at mixed fractions now. So a mixed fraction includes 2 things. It includes a whole number, and it also includes our proper fraction. So an example of this would be 2 2/3. Or another example might be 4 7/10. Let's look at lowest common multiple. In other words, LCMs, lowest common multiples. So in the example for this one, let's look at the 2 numbers. Let's do any 2 numbers. We'll do 2 and 5. Okay. When we're looking at lowest common multiples, we're actually going to multiply each of those 2 numbers out into a line and then compare those 2 lines and see which ones of those numbers are common or the same. Okay, so 2, what's a multiple of 2? 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, 10, 12. Let's keep going as much as we can. We'll stop at 20. Okay, let's do this for the same thing for 5. So let's start at 5, 10, and just add 5s as we go. And we'll stop at the end. Okay, so we have enough numbers to compare now. Let's look at what are the same or common to both rows. So do we have any 2s in this row? No. 4s? No, they're not the same. The numbers that are the same include 10, 20, and no more. So if we were to go out and extend those numbers, we might find some more common multiples. But in this case, we're looking for the L, the lowest common multiple here. So out of those two multiples, we have two common numbers. We've got 10 and 20. The lowest numbers there, of course, would be 10. So in this case, between those two numbers, 2 and 5, the lowest common multiple would be 10 only. Okay, let's look at adding fractions. So we were to add fractions together. There are some rules when you're adding fractions. The first rule being that your denominators must be the same. So in this example, let's look at 3/8 plus 4/8. In this example, the rule is sufficed. Both of those denominators are the same. They're both the number 8. And that's okay now. So we will continue with that denominator being the same for our answer. And now we just add the two numerators together. So that'll be 3 plus 4 being 7. So 3/8 plus 4/8 equals 7/8. But what happens when the denominator is not the same? So if the denominator is not the same, in this example, 3/4 plus 3/5. Well, we couldn't just plus those together anymore, okay? We would need to make sure that our denominators are the same, and so we would have to use the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5 to find out how to multiply them out to make them the same. So let's look at the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5. Well, we know that 4 goes 4, 8, 12. Okay. 5, 10, 15. Okay. The lowest common multiple there would be the number 20. So how many times did I multiply 4 to get to 20? I had to multiply it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So in this case, I'm going to multiply my denominator by 5. Whatever I do to the bottom denominator, I have to multiply by to the numerator as well, apply them the same. And let's look at the 5 now. So how many times did I have to multiply the 5 to get to 20? It was 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to multiply that by 4 as well as the numerator. That would equal 3 times 5, which is 15, 4 times 5, which is 20, plus 3 times 4, which is 12, over 5 times 4, which is 20. Now I've got my denominators the same. All I need to do now is add my numerators. So my denominator stays the same, and my numerator is 15 plus 12 equals 27. Note that my answer here is an improper fraction where my numerator is higher or more valuable than my denominator. I then have to go down and convert that to a mixed fraction. So to convert to a mixed fraction, I will ask the question, how many times does 20 go into 27? And of course, the answer is 1 with 7 remainders. So I'm going to take my 1 whole and I'm going to take my 7 remainders and put that over the same denominator of 20. All right, that's adding fractions. You can apply the same concepts to subtraction. So let's practice that. So subtracting fractions would be exactly the same. So for example here, if I had 3/8 take away 4/8, just as before, that would be the same denominator just the numerators being used for the operation take away. 3 take away 4. Well, we know that 3 take away 4 on any number line would be a negative number. So in this case, my fraction will be negative. And what will be the negative number? Well, 3 take away 4 is -1, so that would be -1/8. Okay, similarly, if we had 4/8 take away 3/8, we would keep the denominator the same and then just do simply 4 take away 3, which we know is 1. So in this case, that would be a +8. What if my denominators were different? Let's look at 3/4 take away 3/5. Well, yet again, I've got the same fractions here. The only thing I've changed is the operation. And so we know that from before, we have to work out the lowest common multiples of 4 and 5. And we did that before. We know that we can have to multiply by 5 to the denominator of 4. The same on the top. Apply the same as before. And so that would now equal 15/20 take away, keeping the same operation, 12/20. And so this finally now would be 15 take away 12, 3/20. And that's how you subtract fractions.